Hello, and you're very welcome to another show, the JMac podcast. I'm John McMahon, and of course, this podcast is sponsored by OrgRetro.com and Attack Sports. Use my promo code JMac podcast to get 15% off on OrgRetro.com and get the best skins, gloves, and equipment on Atak.ie. Be attack minded. And tonight we are here to talk about the All Ireland football final between Mayo and Tyrone, and obviously Tyrone coming out victors 2-14 to Mayo's 15 points. And tonight I'm joined by former Tyrone footballer, Conor Gormley, former Antrim footballer, Kevin McGarty, and tackling sport journalist, Daniel Hussey. And we are joined by the great Conor Gormley. He's the happiest man in Tyrone tonight. How are you, Conor?
Oh, form's deadly. We're still buzzing after the weekend. Fourth time Sam come back up the road now, so all's good and looking forward to the chat.
Happy days, happy days. Daniel, how are you keeping?
Yeah, keeping well. Really enjoyed the Saturday's game. Was in fairness, like it lived up to the billing in terms of physical battle, and yeah, fair play Tyrone. Still can't believe it, to be fair, but amazing.
Kev, how are you keeping?
For the better weeks after that Tyrone victory, no money messing. No, I'm all good. John, you know the power of the GA really shone through on Saturday. I have to tell the boys this story. I was going through to watch Liam Gallagher while the match was going on in Glasgow, so I was getting the train through from Edinburgh, and wasn't there a Mayo fella jumped on the train at Airdrie. Now, there's more chance of a Jehovah's Witness getting in to donate blood than seeing a fella in a Mayo jersey in Airdrie. So the power of the GAA enthralled me on Saturday, but really enjoyed the game and looking forward to chat about it, actually, because so many incidents, so many different talking points.
Yeah, Kev, there definitely was. And look, lads, it was a great game. Tyrone obviously fully deserved the victory. Another hard luck story for Mayo once again. Obviously, always the bridesmaid, never the brides. You know, Peter Hart, Brian Dewar, Fergal Logan, they've won an Ulster title this year. They've won an All Ireland. What a year. Stricken by COVID a few weeks ago, and they got back on the horse. And my God, they've ended it really well. So I'll start off with yourself, Conor. You're over the moon, sir.
I just suppose start of the year, topsy-turvy league campaign. I think probably Killarney was the turning point, conceding 6 goals. More or less, Tyrone had to go back to the drawing board. From reports, maybe Dooher really stepped up his involvement, I think, since that Killarney game. Telling a few home truths, really laying down the law of what was required or what was expected. And since sort of the Cavan game, they've really grown, they've really developed, they've really took on board that learning from Killarney and really pushed on and just sort of got better and better as each game went on. And as you've seen on Saturday, for a few hairy moments here and there, they really controlled the game the whole way through. And just it's great to see them come up the road. The main sort of thing I'd be thinking would be that they've got the monkey off the back regarding the Naughties team. A lot of people who are around the Tyrone regard them all not as good as the Naughties and aren't as good as players, and they've just got that monkey off the back. And the futures, you just wouldn't know what they'll do. You know, they've confidence now of winning Ireland, so it's open now for the boys to really push on and see what they can do in the future. There's plenty of potential there. The bench is strong, the players chomping at the bit, so futures bright at the minute.
Extremely bright, Conor, extremely bright. And I suppose obviously you were referencing the team with the Naughties, and like how far can this Tyrone team go? Because obviously me and Daniel were talking Monday night, they're already nearly one of the favourites to do back to back. Obviously you'll have the likes of Dublin, Kerry coming back with a vengeance next year, Conor. But look, I really do think the sky is the limit for this Tyrone team, Conor.
I possibly could be, but again, that the way Tyrone have progressed all year will give a bit of confidence maybe to other counties. Just look at an Ulster, maybe Armagh, Derry's coming again. You've still Donegal, you've Monaghan thereabouts, so it'll give confidence to other teams of what to do. Maybe not next year, but over 2, 3, 4 years, a wee bit of confidence of Tyrone on the island. They'll be chomping at the bit too again to knock Tyrone off that perch, but. As you say, I think the sky is the limit for them. They're a good enough age bracket. Yes, you've maybe Matty Donnelly, Petey Hart, Niall Morgan in around the 30 mark. They haven't that long left maybe to play, but good enough rest that be fairly young, mid-20s. They've experience now, and you've run McNamee in that bracket as well, sort of early 30s. So the age bracket pretty good. Over the next 2, 3 years will be very, very interesting to see how they get on and how they take the learnings from this year. Can they cope with the burden now maybe of being an Ireland champion, something that we maybe the Naughties struggle slightly a wee bit with. So can they take on board maybe what Dublin have done and look forward and push on again? I'm sure they'll not be not be happy just with one medal. They want to push on and try and get another one, So, but we'll see how it goes. We'll celebrate this one first, I suppose, and winter well, and look forward to the new year again.
100%, Connor. Obviously, Brian do refer to Logan saying after the game, it's pure and utter relief. It was a tough year for them. Obviously, that defeat against Kerry in the league. Obviously, as you were saying, they learned a lot from that game. They had an unbelievable championship. Did a really tight journey. They got through every game with great merit. Connor, you really would put it down to pure relief, wouldn't you?
I probably would. So, but again, the boys seem to have bought in what the management have been saying, given that sort of freshness. You probably just pick out Meyler, prime example. This last number of years, maybe he's been playing a lot of the football going backways, slightly sideways. He's got a more sort of freedom, more belief in his game. He's even sort of said that himself this last day or two, that he's really enjoying his football now. He's attacking men, he's taking men on, he's driving past and creating that for extra man, getting overlap and playing exceptional stuff. I suppose another point too maybe is they're having belief or confidence in their man-to-man defending abilities, not just leaving maybe sort of zonal stuff and sort of that's your zone, you mark that zone. If the ball comes in or a man comes in, then you tackle. They really have bought into man-to-man, take your man on, stand up. He's good enough to beat you, he's good enough to beat you, but we have confidence and ability of our own defenders. So a couple of them wee things really have shone out for me, and as I say, they can hopefully build on them wee things and look forward to the future with optimism.
Kev, this was a really impressive performance by a team in an All-Ireland final. It was very convincing throughout. I know Mayo missed the goal chance. I know obviously Ryan O'Donoghue kicked the penalty wide and everything that went with it, hit off the post. Fine margins, Kev, in an All-Ireland final. But it really did look throughout that Tyrone were comfortable, Kev.
Yeah, look, I'm not going to be harsh tonight, but I've no sympathy for Mayo when you talk about fine margins. This is the All-Ireland final. This is where people rise up to the game. This is where the cream rises to the crop, and you get them people, taking that big pressure shot on or making that big pressure tackle. Look, by the first minute and a half, and Tommy Conroy takes his man on, scores a point. And then I think inside the next 2 minutes, 45 seconds, Mayo turn over the ball 3 times. They look really hungry. They look as if they're on the front foot. They look as if they're aggressive. After that, Conor Gormley said the word. Tyrone were in control throughout this match. They controlled the ball. What really impressed me more than anything else was their game management on the ball. They were patient with the ball. 90% of the time, they took the right shots and the right options on the ball. When they needed the big scores, they come up trumps with them. So I was really impressed by Tyrone's control of the game. Conor mentioned there one-on-one at the back. They seem to get the matchups right. Bar maybe the only player I'd really say, Ryan O'Donoghue at times got on a lot of ball and did cause 1 or 2 problems. But after that, I mean, Pádraig Hampshire really, Tommy Conroy didn't cause him a lot of problems. Mac to me shadowed Aidan O'Shea so well. Was Dermot O'Connor even in the game? I had to ask myself at certain times in the match. Kevin McLaughlin ran about a lot, but then, he was like a postman. He buzzed around the area an awful lot, but he wasn't delivering too much, So, when you come away from the game and you look at it in hindsight, you watch the game back like we've probably all done 2, 3, 4 times. Look, there's no doubts. Tyrone deserved this game. They were in control of the game. Their game management was much better. They got the matchups much better. They worked harder in all of the areas that we spoke about in the week coming into the game. And, we talk about Donegal the other season, about Jim McGuinness and the turnaround after what happened down in Armagh. I think it was in 2013, and then they came back and maybe win the All-Ireland a couple of years later. This is as impressive, if not more impressive, when you're going down to a Kerry side that has been touted as the next biggest thing in the GA, that are going to do 3, 4, 5 in a row, and you get a hammer, and within 5 to 6 weeks, you turn this around and become All-Ireland champions. And, the style and the manner they did it, we have to give so much credit to the guys, not only the players, but also the backroom staff and how they've channeled that. So, I have nothing but credit for Tyrone tonight. And, looking forward, Conor said it, they have a big future. They've done very well. Conor's been involved with the minors this year. I've seen their under 16s, 15s play, who are equally impressive. So, Tyrone have nothing to fear coming forward. They might have come a year early than we maybe expected, maybe 2 years early, but by hell, they're one hell of a side. They're fit, they're motivated, they know the system that they're playing, they have confidence in each other, and going forward, that bodes so well for them.
Kev, Poor Campsey's outside of the foot point. That was a real momentum swing for Tyrone at that stage of the game. It really swung them on after. It was a superb point. He's the captain of the team. He's the leader of the team. Tell us for that man and the impact he has in this Tyrone team, Kev, because realistically, a point like that in All-Ireland final is always going to swing it your way, really.
Yeah, well, Hampshires obviously a great leader. I mean, the captaincy came away. Petey had it at one stage, and then Matty had it, and the new management have come in and decided to give it to somebody like Paddy. I think they work with him at the under-21 level. Maybe Connor will correct me if I'm wrong on that. He's such a good ball player. He's such a good athlete. I think he works as a PT in his own time. Very, very good amateur boxer in his own time as well. You know, very motivated lad. And when you've got somebody like that heading it up, you know, driving things on from the back, then it's very inspirational. But you know, you talk about that Hampshire point in the I think it's in the 13th minute, possibly scores 7th minute, possibly scores with the outside of his foot. The one big thing about the difference in the two teams, particularly in the first half, was Tyrone scored 10 points in the first half. 7 of them were what I would call free ball shots. Nobody was hanging out of anybody. Hampshire scores with the outside of the foot. Kieran McGeary, Sludden scores 2, one in the 27th, one in the 37th minute. McCurry scores one where there's not even a cornerback hanging out of him. Mayo had to work so hard for their scores in that first half. The Tyrone put them under so much pressure. Tyrone bottled them up on a number of occasions. Aidan O'Shea didn't touch the ball to the 15th minute of the game. Yes, he grew into the game a small bit. Don't get me wrong. I'm not here to knock the guy. He's been playing with a foot injury. He's had a great impact on Mayo GA and the GA over the last 8 to 10 years. But for long times, he was anonymous. And that was partly because of the Tyrone defence, but also partly because of the work rate Tyrone out the pitch. So we can talk all day long about Hampshire scoring an inspirational point. I'm not knocking Paddy Hampshire. It would have been much easier for Hampshire. It would have been much harder for Hampshire if he had a player hanging out of him. And my point to you is, for 7 of them 10 points, there was no Mayo defender hanging out of a Tyrone forward. That was not the same case at the other end of the pitch.
Yeah, 100%. It was a sterling, obviously, performance by basically that whole full backline for Tyrone, really, because Mike McKernan was bursting up to pay Tyrone and McNamee, Power Campsey, Niall Morgan between the sticks, Kevin. So, you know, when them lads are on song for a team, that's obviously going to drive the rest of the lads out the field on.
100%. And they are, you know, they are what, in many ways, other players will get credit, other players will get a lot of attention. But them 3 lads in the full back line and Morgan, the goalkeeper, you know, even Morgan coming out the field, he made an interception one time in the first half. If you don't know, I just haven't got the minute noted down, but the long ball comes in, he races out of the net, catches the ball, he automatically puts his team on the front foot. The defenders know he's coming out, they have confidence in him. Hampshire bombing forward, McKiernan bombing forward. I think McKiernan bombs forward early in the second half and plays a ball to Conor Kirkpatrick. I think it's the 52nd minute, and Tyrone really should have got a point off that. And, you know, for me, Ronan McNamee is a total unsung hero. We can talk about teams of the year. We can talk about, you know, all-stars, all of this. McNamee's maybe one of them guys that goes along. He's played a load of years. He maybe doesn't get the credit that he deserves. He really bottled Aidan O'Shea up at the weekend, and that's no mean feat. And, you know, he's one of these guys. He's like a centre midfielder in football. He comes out with the tattoos and the beard and the bulk. But he puts in the hits and the tackles, and he is the heart and soul of this team. As much as anybody else he is, he's one of them guys that's ready to get in, get his hands dirty, and, you know, fair play to him. He doesn't get as much credit as he should. So it's a great basis for the rest of the team going out. And really at the weekend, all 4 of them were superb.
Yeah, 100%, Kev, 100%. Daniel, obviously the midfield partnership, me and you were talking about it on Aaron's channel, GA Fan TV, and your podcast, Tackling Sport. But Brian Kennedy and Conor Kilpatrick, it was a fantastic game with the pair of them. Obviously, you know, they're up against Matthew Moran and Conor Laftus of Mayo. That's no mean feat, Daniel. And, you know, Conor Kilpatrick's catch for Darren McCurry's goal. Incredible stuff, Daniel. Yeah,
absolutely. It was definitely an area that, before the game, not just pundits, but I think Mayo really fancied their chances at really having a good go. If you consider some of Matty Ruan's performances against Brian Fenton in the All-Ireland final last year and the All-Ireland semi-final this year, that there was definitely Mayo definitely fancied their chances big time. The fact they pushed up on Niall Morgan's kick out suggested that. And I guess like the long kickouts could definitely have ultimately been the difference, because I think Tyrone ended up scoring 1-3 or 1-4 from Niall Morgan's long kickouts alone. And if you look at that goal, the whole point of Niall Morgan's kicks is no matter, like against Kerry, while Kerry managed to win that battle, at least the ball was in Kerry's half of the pitch. And that's the big difference. And when Kilpatrick managed to win that ball, it's one pass to Conor McKenna, I think, and then suddenly Tyrone are in for a goal. And it's almost like a set play, and it's the one time they'll have Mayo man-on-man at the back line and going at them. And it's such a foolproof system, because if Mayo do win the kick out, Tyrone are set in their defence and they can get their man-on-man system. But speaking of systems, what really has impressed me is if you take the Kerry game in the league, for example, for majority of the game, Tyrone were trying to do some sort of a man-on-man system, not too dissimilar to what they played against Mayo. And they got ripped apart and everything went wrong and they got hammered by 16 points or whatever it was. But I think the adaptability to know that that wasn't going to work against Kerry in the All-Ireland semi-final. So, come up with this defensive system where they push the Kerry forwards to the sideline and then bottle them up. Very simple. And then against Mayo, they seemed to, for the majority of the game anyway, go man-on-man and continue to basically play like they did against Kerry in the league, because they felt that was the best way of beating Mayo. So I think Brian Dewar and Fergal Logan deserve huge credit, because they've seen the mistakes they made against Kerry, that system doesn't work against Kerry, but it doesn't mean then that it won't work against another team. And against this Mayo side, I just think Mayo got caught cold trying to play the way they always kind of do, and obviously in hindsight and everything, but looking back, I think you've got to maybe give Tyrone the kick out or something, or do something a bit different, retreat to the 45, Niall Morgan pops it off, and then you can set some sort of defensive system. But Mayo don't seem to have that adaptability. They seem to always go with this man-on-man sort of system, which works brilliantly against the Dubs, which is why at times over the last 5-6 years, they're the only team to put it up against Dublin. But when you're going into the All-Ireland final as marginal favourites against the Tyrone side, who they should fancy their chances of beating on the day, they just seem to get out. James Horan in particular just seemed to get out tactics and out kind of manoeuvred by the Tyrone management team. So it's full credit to Fergal Logan and Brian Dewar. As Kevin said, it's year one. That's the kind of scary thing, I guess. It's so hard to do back-to-back All-Irelands outside the Dubs over the last few years. And if you look at those great Tyrone teams that Conor Corbally played on 03, 05, 08, there was never a back-to-back. The similarities with Tyrone and Arsenal in football, I always found incredible, because Arsenal did 3 Premier League titles and they never could do back-to-back titles either, like against those great Manchester United teams. But I think there is a massive opportunity for Tyrone, because I know the bookies have them in as 4th favourites for next year's All-Ireland. So I think that's your dressing wall frame. Put that up and frame it up in the dressing wall, lads. We beat Mayo in the All-Ireland final. We battered them, and they're shorter odds than us to win the All-Ireland, let alone Kerry or Dublin. So full credit to Tyrone. And I'd be excited where this team can go over the next 3 or 4 years, because I don't think they've even started yet, really.
And sorry, Daniel, Arsenal don't look like doing much these days either. So
Very true, very true.
But what I was going to say to you, of course, obviously Kilpatrick's catching the middle of the field, and as I was saying to Conor, obviously Daniel, with poor Campsey, nailing that point at the very start. How much of a momentum swing, even when Conor Kilpatrick gets that ball in the middle of the field, that's a massive momentum swing at that time of the game, because when that goal was scored, that's when Mayo started playing, and that just wasn't good enough for Mayo, really, Daniel, was it?
Yeah, and it's the old hammer the hammer as well. And again, if you looked at, you'd give Tyrone before the game, you give Tyrone forwards the edge, you'd give Mayo defence and Tyrone defence pretty similar, I guess. But the midfield, again, like I was saying, Mayo really fancied their chances there, and it's hammer the hammer stuff. If Kilpatrick wins the ball over Ruan or Loftus, like it's massive. It's the momentum swing. And if you look at Tyrone's 2 goals, they were nowhere near as good goal chances as the 4 goal chances that Mayo had. Like even when Conor McKenna gets that ball, that pass he does is absolutely spectacular. It's honestly one of the best hand passes I've seen, because we had McCurry in shot watching the game, and I still didn't see him or see that pass. Do you know what I mean? So it's just the ruthlessness, the picking the right options. And when I say the right options, like if Conor McKenna gets that ball and hits it over the bar, nobody's saying he should have passed the ball to Darren McCurry. But the fact is he realised that there's actually an even better option on. And that's something that Mayo forwards, not just in this final, but in previous finals, haven't seemed to be able to do it at the right time. And it's finding those passes that no one else can. And like they were so ruthless. And we were saying maybe before, my one concern was could they be as ruthless as they were against Kerry? And if anything, they were more ruthless. And like that pass from Conor Meyler, like I made this point on another podcast, like Kerry tried a long ball against Dublin in the All-Ireland final replay to Paul Gainey in the first 10 or 15 minutes with some of the worst kick passes I've ever seen, like 40 yards from goal, where all they needed was that one pass that Conor Meyler gave to Colin McShane, which was so perfect. And I understand Rob Henley got in a bit of no man's land, and Niall Morgan possibly would have cleared both players out, but it was that perfect that it created that bit of doubt. Colin McShane seemed to have all day. It almost seemed kind of pre-planned, and he just knocks it in the net. And it was just a brilliant ball, but it was so simple as well. And I think they make it look so easy that they walk the ball in from McCurry's goal, but that wasn't a walk-in chance, in my opinion. It was just such a good pass from McKenna under massive pressure that there just seemed to be that ruthless side to Tyrone that you just can't teach in some ways. You know, it's got to be in a team. And I guess, you know, going back to like the likes of Joe Bradley, and they talk about the culture, which, you know, to a point, that sort of ruthlessness and making sure we're always going to pick the right option. And last thing on that, I did hear Niall Morgan saying a lot of their training this year was based on game situations. So lads, you're 1 point down here, you're 1 point up. This is a sideline kick to last play of the game, kick out. And maybe all that, I'm not sure if other teams are doing it as much as that, but it seemed to pay off that they always seem to pick the right options because maybe they've done it 400 times in training beforehand.
Yeah, spot on, Daniel. Conor Meyler's vision, obviously, for Colin McShane's goal, Daniel, was a serious. It's an incredible ball in. McShane had to wear it all, sticking in the back of the net. Daniel, it came straight from the training ground.
Yeah, 100%. And you can see that ball's been worked on. And like, to me, I think I'd give Conor Meyler my player of the year, because I know Paddy Clifford's I think he got a lot of stick for being on the team of the year, and I know it was the Munster Championship, but going into that Kerry Tyrone game, all we were talking about was Paddy Clifford. And he was so out of the game. It was incredible. And even when it almost like seemed at times Conor Meyler let him get the ball and then put pressure on him to maybe embarrass him more or rub it in more or really make a statement. So it just seemed that whole situation was played on Conor Meyler's terms. It was incredible, but he's so adaptable. He can do so many good things. And in particular, the way that semi-final performance went, but then the final, and obviously culminating in that ball from McShane, which again it's a simple ball, but it's an incredible ball, because at the end of the day, he's on the sideline at the 45. And if you pause that, you know, the pass is a tough pass. You know, is it the percentage play? Probably not, but he's obviously been given that license to go forward. So straight off the training ground, but to me, Conor Meyler would be my pick for football of the year, because I think he has just really transformed the way Tyrone could go at teams, and the fact he did that job in Paddy Clifford meant Kerry had to go down those blind alleys as opposed to slipping ball into David Clifford a lot more than they did.
Spot on, Daniel. Conor Gormley, Conor Meyler's GPS stats. Any news on them?
I think it's still in flames, so it is somewhere. Remember, just going back to McCurry's goal there. Dara Cannon's involvement in that was massive. Dara was involved. He was very close to the kick out with Con. The path that caught it, so he had to go off like a hair on the support on McKenna. But just at the last second, you could see him looking over his left shoulder, seeing McCurry was in a better position, and just held his run back that wee bit. So I thought that was great sort of spatial working on the pressure. If you had kept on running, he made a crowded area out. Just made it go back. It just was great wee bit of thinking. Right, McCurry's in a better position, McCurry's in a better position. I'll hold me running back a wee bit, and then it was great pass, as I said there. Great flick across and I finished to the net with McCurry. But I thought it was great wee bit of individual play from Dara Cannon, thinking on the spot, and high pressure game, high pressure, high speed. This was brilliant. But I just come back to Conor McKenna or Conor Meyler, brilliant. You know, just really exceptional this year. Has took his game to another level. As I said previously, he sort of played a lot of his football sideways, maybe back the ways. But under this new management, he's got a new lease of life. He's really the platform for Tyrone's good play. A lot of stuff goes through him. He's reading of the game, his tackling, his man marking job we done the last day in the semi-final on Clifford was brilliant. It was great to see from a defensive point of view or from a defender's point of view that there's a role for man marking within the game, no matter where the player goes. So it was great to see. But I remember watching him must be about 10 years ago now, maybe. He was in McCrory Cup training for the OMA CBS, and they were doing the fitness test, the blood test, and there was some sort of coaching activity thing on or training thing on afterwards, and they were doing the fitness test. All the lads were away home and shared and changed, and Conor Meyler was still running. You know, that last 10 years ago when he was 16, 17, he was unbelievable shape. We were sitting back going, like, we want to get our course started here because we want to get home. But he just kept running, and he's still doing it today, like, you know. So, and he's had this week there about tough days and dark days, even through like some tough times that he had and different things on and off the field. But just without a doubt, Daniel said there, running for player of the year, the way he's been playing the year.
Yeah, 100%. And I suppose, Conor, like, would he kind of remind you, obviously, with Brian Dewar, because like that just relentless attitude, relentless running, an absolute freak on the training ground. So would Conor Meyler kind of be reminiscent of his manager?
I probably would, but I'd imagine Dewar would still nearly beat him if they were doing it today. You're right, Dewar's part, you know, but. It's probably a lot of the boys are probably playing the way nearly Dewar played. You know, sort of, he just sort of have taken his energy, his desire, his passion, his sort of drive and determination. Really, they've brought that all to. It's just, you can see parts of Dewar nearly in every player the way they play. You know, so great to see. Great that they can show that sort of hunger and desire compared to this last 2 or 3 years, really, where they've been sort of playing within themselves, I think. And it's just that new freshness, that first year bounce, maybe, as they said, has really helped them and really all shown how great of footballers they really are, or really can be.
And focusing to the other side of that, obviously Niall Sludden, he was here, there and everywhere in the final. He was here, there and everywhere all year. Conor, another lad that has a serious engine, very similar to Conor Meyler in that kind of respect, and just a great team player, Conor.
I would, without a doubt. You know, we have to play a club team, Jack. We have to play Oman in the championship in a couple of weeks' time. So hopefully, I don't get the job of Jason Meyler or get near him at any stage. You know, and Niall's, you know, just exceptional club player as well. Had his tough times the last couple of years as well. Hadn't been selected. Probably was doubting himself maybe that he's going to make a team. And he might have made a couple of first league games maybe, I think, out of this year. So really worked hard, got a spot on the team, and just really excelled against the championship ticked on. And another example, chipping in with 2 points during an Ireland final under pressure. One of them's under a bit of pressure. Another one outside of the boot, high skilled shot. Like, if them two hamster his shot outside of the boot goes off, it slides off the thing, you'd be wondering what the hell is that. But full of confidence, full of self-belief that they can pull that off in an Ireland final. There's no chance if I get that position would I be doing an outside of the boot in an Ireland final, looking around going, where's Molly Donnelly, where's these boys? Great to see, great skill. There's some skill that doesn't be used that often. I suppose we come back maybe a bit like Dewar. Dewar was famous for outside of the boot shots, you know, so someone maybe that's been working on and practicing, definitely you can see it.
Conor, you'd be too busy up the other end of the pitch blocking the other shots, so I wouldn't worry about the shooting.
Rumour had it he was out showing Ronnie McNamee how to do it with that block he had on Aidan O'Shea in the first half.
Right. Was going walkabouts maybe, we were lucky enough for a good block too.
Kevin, Darren McCurry, he said after the game he had to go away in 2008 to find his dazzler. My God, he's found it.
Yeah, he has, and look, you know, sometimes you need that. We spoke about Conor Meyler, and obviously he's done a very big interview up here in the paper today, reference having to go away and sort of look for help and look at things. And sometimes, like all of us know, you have to hit pit bottom at certain things to get right back up there. You have to go away and reflect and ask yourself questions. Am I good enough, or where's it going, or am I going to put in this commitment? And you know, Conor made a very good point just there a second ago about another player very similar. I'm sure Niall Sludden was thinking to himself over the last 4 to 5 years, where do I fit in this Tyrone team? Where are they playing me? 1 week I'm here, 1 week I'm there. I don't really know what my role is. I don't really know if I'm good enough under this management. And all of a sudden he's found a new lease of life. McCurry's come back. He's been explosive this year. He's had a point to prove. He's been out with the right attitude. He's scoring freely from play. He's doing rightly from frees as well. I would say that he would openly admit that Sunday probably wasn't his best game of the year. He made 1 or 2 rash choices of shots in the first half, second half. But what I like about McCurry was maybe in the past couple of years, maybe Conor can put me right on this, a lot of people in Tyrone might have seen him as a wee bit selfish. It was always about Darren getting on the scoreboard and turning over things and that. Now he seems much more like a team player. even when he had the chance maybe in the past where he would have got a ball and maybe shot rationally. He wasn't doing it this time around. He was playing into the team system. Once or twice on Sunday, he was maybe in the past, you were thinking McCurry would take on that shot. He didn't. He held the ball up, maybe reproduced the ball, recycled it, and waited for the better option, a wee bit more patient. So, look, another great story about this Tyrone team, whether it be Sludden reinventing himself, whether it be Meyler reinventing himself, and certainly McCurry coming back in. He's been a huge plus for them. And maybe with a big game on Sunday, he would have been in running for Player of the Year. That's how much of a turnaround this has been for him. But certainly going into next year, you know, going to be a massive year for him because he's going to be a marked man. He's been that good this year. But for him, it's been a 9 out of 10 season. And, you know, one has to accept that what he's been through and the way he's come back, you know, total credit to him.
Looks like he's wearing the shorts. Normal again. It was like, I should have said.
I think he's been warned about that. Can I just say another thing to the lads and maybe open it up for debate? But having just watched the match back for the third time, I don't think we really understand how good a performance Colin Kirkpatrick had in the middle of the park. And I'm not only talking about high catching. His work rate in the second half at one stage, Matthew Moran is piling through in goal. And he just stands up to him, turns the ball over. It's a free out at a vital time of the game. He also puts in a couple of vital tackles in the first half. And I spoke to you, John, about them middle eight of Tyrone. And I think that's where all the credit gets. It's no, you know, I suppose difference that we're talking here about. Petey Hart on one side was Sludden up above him, and Kieran McGeary on the other side with Meyler up above him. Them four guys with the two guys in the middle of the park, them six guys, that is the engine house of Tyrone. Not only can they play football, but their work rate is so unseen, and that was so important on Saturday afternoon.
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah, I totally agree. The two boys in midfield, like, would put their best games without a doubt they've ever played. Especially Colin, I would agree with Kevin, definitely, especially with Colin for his first year in, and to produce a performance like that in an Ireland final was exceptional. And again, Brian Kennedy's work rate, especially in the first half, he worked and turned over a few ball, and he got hits in. He just was a real spoiler, didn't let, as Daniel said, probably that the Mayo midfield were going to lay the platform for their victory, and they just stamped that out completely. They never got a chance to move. You know, even Colin got into a bit of a fisticuffs with Tyrone near the end of the game, so he's not afraid to get stuck in. So it was massive, and it was just great to see them boys really step up to the plate. Young and experienced players, and performance of a lifetime was great to see, and hopefully they can learn from the experience and build on it and push on again. And there's more in the two lads as well. You know, there's more talent. Exceptional club players in Tyrone as well. Like they're a nightmare to mark. They're strong. They're powerful, and they just brought that forward then into Tyrone this year, and it's great to see them doing so well.
And even just if you look at like the middle, like Kevin said, the middle six there, like Peter Hart getting, you know, after, you know, running around all game, gets that mark at the end and gets the score. It's amazing. But one thing I just on the two midfield, I think it was Kennedy and Kilpatrick. They called out Andy Moran for his comments on the football pod or something, and I think Andy Moran said basically what most people were saying, that Mayo midfield would probably, you know, clean Tyrone's midfield out. Now I'm wondering, just, you know, obviously it was in good jest and all. Like, are these lads listening to these podcasts beforehand, and is it fueling the fire in Tyrone, and are the Mayo boys just like shutting everything out and getting no motivation from it? Because I took from that either they were tipped off after the game, or they had it in their head that a lot of lads are writing us off here, and maybe it's just the management team feeding a bit of that to the players.
Well, probably no. Mickey would have used a lot of that down through the years. Mickey Hart, like, he would have used a wee bit of, you know, this is what they're writing in articles about us, or this is Pat Ballan saying about us, whatever. So I'd imagine it has been used a wee bit with Brian sort of psychology work. Like, they're definitely using that you've been written off here. You're no hopers against these top boys. You know, I would imagine that the things like that, even motivational tools are being used to definitely push boys on, without a doubt. Like, you know, they've been written off since Killarney nearly every game they've went into. So I definitely would agree that there's some sort of psychology working on in the background, whoever's doing it.
Yeah, it's amazing though that's the case, and it's a GA. It must be a GA thing, because you always hear, you know, we were written off, or even Donny after the Kerry 2014 game, the Joe Brolly comments. But if it works, like, why not use that little bit of even make it up or write your own article and feed it to the lads. But
I don't know if it's I don't know if I'm speaking off the cuff here, but I think that Dr. John Kramer's been in with him. John worked with us in Queens for a long time with the Sigerson team, and I know that Fergal would have been involved maybe back in the day with him. So his background would be golf, so it's more working one-on-one psychology with players. So maybe that has something to do with it. But certainly the way that the two lads played, somebody's pissed them off, and they've certainly reacted to it. And yeah. Look, the performance at the weekend, I just think it's, we can't pass it by without mentioning that sort of middle sector of the field where, for me, Tyrone totally dominated Mayo.
Jeez, I thought the need more psychologists today with you, Kev, now, but I think...
Psychiatrist, man, psychiatrist.
Daniel Hussey, Matthew Donnelly, what a performance once again. Another great year for the man from Trillick. He's been there, he's done that now. He had a very solid game on Saturday. He kicked a lovely, lovely score. A leader for this Tyrone team, Daniel, and the icing on the cake to lift that Sam Maguire on Saturday.
Yeah, he did his job, and it almost seemed pre-planned, or with him going off for Colin McShane. It must have been because I thought he was having a good game, to be honest with you, before he came off. But he got on the ball, he got a score, and it's been a different sort of role for him because he's obviously soldier with Tyrone for a few years. And even when I was like initially saying that Colin McShane would possibly start the All-Ireland final, I couldn't really think of a player to take off, and it was really just Matty Donnelly or no one. And I was like, well, you need Matty Donnelly from the start. So, and I think the Tyrone management team played that perfectly, the way Matty Donnelly did his kind of 40-50 minutes or 45 minutes, and then Colin McShane came on. But yeah, phenomenal for to get that All-Ireland medal. It's incredible. And fully deserved for his career, because he would have soldiered on a few of those hammers with Dublin or against Dublin over the years as well. So full credit. But even if you look at a lot of these boys, like the 30-somethings like some Niall Morgan, like they would have gone through so much. And I know Niall Morgan's spoken before on, if he didn't think he'd win an All-Ireland, he wouldn't be playing, sort of thing. So the Tyrone boys always had that drive, or always believed that there was an All-Ireland in this team. And maybe they just didn't think it would happen this year, just with everything coming together. But in fairness, like Matty Donnelly did his job phenomenally. He got his score, and he almost set the game up for Colin McShane in some ways as well.
Touching on that, Daniel, we heard Niall Morgan obviously talking after the game for Atak.ie and off the ball there on Monday as well. Like, it was self-belief. He had a lot of naysayers, and obviously Tyrone kind of went under the cosh this year. It was, as I was saying on the podcast a couple of days ago, obviously all the talk was about Mayo, Dublin, Kerry. Tyrone just went about their business up in Garvaghey, trained away, done their own thing. It suited them down to the ground, Daniel.
Yeah, and even the naysayers thing, and not to go back too much on this point, but Niall Morgan in that off the ball interview referenced a lot of very specific things that could be whittled down to one or two guys in the media who would have said it. Or so, like, I know, as far as I know, all the Dublin lads do not look at social media at all, or basically wouldn't find these articles. But again, I think Niall Morgan's the type of character that needs to be switched on to that. And people wrote my kickouts off, or said I wasn't, my frees weren't good enough, or stuff like this over the years. That seems to have been the building blocks to driving him on. And and he even spoke after. He said that a lot of people were saying his kickouts didn't go right against Kerry, and he said that I would hit him in the exact spots where I was told to hit it, on their 45, and if Kerry win the ball, so be it. But, it wasn't my job for them to win the kick out. It was my job to get the ball in that area. So he almost took it a small bit personally. Some of the narrative around his kickouts didn't go too well against Kerry, and he put them in the same spots against Mayo, and this time it led to 1-3 or 1-4. So a small bit of vindication, but it even shows he's very process-based in the sense that I did my job. I put the ball exactly where my two managers wanted the ball to be against Kerry. So why am I getting stick? So I thought it was a very revealing interview, particularly the off-the-ball one. Again, not too dissimilar to Kendi and Kilpatrick, but needed that small bit of seeing what other people are saying. And why not? If it's not, it's going to fuel you. But he spoke also, I think, on the GA Social, the BBC podcast, which is a very good interview, him and Conor Meyler, and he was saying about that Kerry game. And, I think they had a night out planned afterwards. So there was no, according to Niall Morgan, there was no training session the morning of, despite what Eamon Fitzmaurice was trying to tell everyone in Kerry. But he basically said that they had a sort of night out plan, and while it wasn't, the focus was on Kerry, it just seemed obviously afterwards that people were kind of maybe the last hurrah before championships. So I know he said in the Mickey Hart, when they lost the 2014 game, that he played the DVD of the league game all the way back to Tyrone on the bus. But that wasn't done this year, but it was kind of implied. And over the next few weeks, they were open and honest with each other. And last thing on Morgan's interviews, he did say that there was definitely a more open and honesty, and players were were more humble than under Mickey Hart in terms of taking criticism. So he could go up to Conor Meyler and say, look, you're not doing this right, or you're doing this right, or whatever. And there just seemed to be that ability to take on feedback a lot more, where he said that under Mickey, it just didn't seem, that seemed to have kind of gone stale, and people weren't calling out other players. Do you know what I mean? So there's definitely a line to do that. But I thought it was fascinating, Niall Morgan, over the last few days in terms of the interviews, but his actual performance was amazing, and outside contender for Football of the Year, which is incredible considering his position as well, you know.
Daniel, isn't it just so refreshing to kind of hear players being so open and honest even after a game and even the aftermath of a game, because we're so used to just hearing players, always a great win, a great get over the line, blah blah blah, same old rubbish. Niall Morgan was upfront, honest. You know, he was talking about his critics, he was talking about why he does it, he referenced the other team members, he was just brutally honest. It was just great stuff, Daniel.
That's actually a brilliant point, because through no fault of Mayo's own, I guess they did their pre-match All-Ireland final press conference 4 weeks beforehand after the Dublin game, so they didn't even know their opponents. And as far as I know, no one else was put up for an interviews outside of there. Where you look at Fergal Logan, even after the COVID thing, they were, you know, Fergal Logan and Brian Dewar, you know, were upfront and honest about all their interviews, and did so many, which is why maybe the slip of the tongue came from Fergal Logan with that one comment in one interview that got picked up by everyone. So I would assume from that, going into the All-Ireland final, that they'd shut the camp down, but they were very revealing in their interviews. The All-Ireland final pre-match press conference, it seems Conor Meyler did an interview with Irish Examiner, and then the GA Social as well. And I thought what he said was fascinating, just in terms of his own struggles that Kevin touched on. And even he's getting so worked up from games, and he used to methodically look at every single video of a forward instead of kind of watching one or two videos and going, right, let's play and back myself. And the perfect example is the Paddy Clifford one, obviously. So I'm just so impressed. It's a brilliant point you make, that there's such an openness to Tyrone, and maybe Mayo could take something from that, you know, outside a couple of, you know, I don't know, it seemed everything was kind of, you know, the camp was in such a lockdown, and Kerry have done that for the last few years, but where does that get you at the end of the day? You know, and obviously Dublin have done that more or less, but they would still do some sort of interviews, where I just think Tyrone have just gone down the let's be open and honest, and why not? And you can see it makes no difference. If anything, it probably helps the Tyrone team, and definitely something in that for Mayo, 100%.
It sounded like Mayo just shut up shop too quick. I don't know. I think it was nearly too quick, too soon. Conor Gormley, obviously Conor McKenna, he came home from Australia, and Colin McShane, he was offered the contract to Australia. He turned it down. He's won his Sam Maguire. Conor McKenna, he's won his Sam Maguire. They're two terrific stories, Conor.
Hi, Conor. Thankfully for Tyrone that they decided to come home or stay at home with Gal's case, like, so. Massive boost. You can see just what to bring to the squad, and two sort of down to earth lads, well, like civil lads, and they've really sort of up the ante maybe within the Tyrone squad, really sort of that professional type of attitude towards training, towards playing. Like Conor is just probably, by his own admission too, probably having the best championship season. He said that, I think so. But again, I think there's more to come from. Again, more from Cahill as well after a serious injury last year. He probably disappointed not to get more game time, but his impact off the bench has been serious. That's why he probably was kept in reserve for the final to make that impact. And seen then he did that just with his first touch to flick it to the net in the Ireland final was lovely. But two massive players for Tyrone, and they'll be two massive players in the future as well, I think. You know, if they get a good sort of pre-season, they're going to need to build again. More game time, more working with the management, more working with the coaches of Stuart McMahon, Collie Holmes, and that as well will be. And Peter will be massive for them, and the future's bright for them two boys. Like, and it's great to have scoring power again within their own forward line. It's, you know, you can't win many games without scoring power, and Cahill and Conor give you that. Like Conor's 2 goals against Kerry, 1 points, and scoring a goal, a semi-final and final. So goal scores are hard to come by, and hopefully the two boys are stay injury free and keep joining the football and keep playing the way they do. I think it's great for Tyrone to do.
100%, Connor. Obviously, Derek Canavan and Colin McShane were released off the bench, but you're looking at the bench there, Connor. Mark Bradley, Ronan O'Neill, them boys weren't even introduced. Them lads would walk on to any county team. That's a serious bench to have even going forward, Connor, because even like them pair of boys really are match winners, and they weren't even looked at by Fergal Logan and Brian Dewar.
That's right, and then you could add Tiernan McCann and that as well.
Tiernan, yeah.
As well, like so massive. This probably was the winning of most of the Tyrone's games that the impact the bench made all year. Again, not easy for boys to sit on the bench to wait till their chance to come on. You have to give credit to the management team that they can keep boys boiling over nicely without tipping over and throwing the toys out of the pram and leaving or the whole thing. You never heard any stories of anybody being upset or not playing or no stuff like that coming out of the camp, so it kept it very tight. Brilliant management from the two boys like that. They can do that to show them that the desire and the hunger, they want to come on and press, and it was, as I said, the one of those, all the game for Tyrone this year, and hopefully the boys keep ahead and don't get carried away. Nothing happens over the winter time that they're complaining or giving out, but hopefully Ireland or Celtic Cross will help that case, hopefully, but look forward to pushing on. Them boys have to push on again at the next level. There'll be a lot of teams who've said trying to knock them off the perch, and we've been fourth favourites for next year, so Ireland might help as well. A wee bit of hunger, a wee bit of drive.
100%. And Connor, is there like a togetherness now in the Tyrone camp? Like, are we looking at the teams with the naughties now? Because Brian Dewar, he's been there, done that. He's one as the player. He's one as the manager now. Fergal Logan's pretty much the same. So is it like, has the ship been steadied? I know after Mickey Hart leaving, a lot of questions were asked. Has the ship now been properly steadied with Tyrone GAA, Connor?
I would say so. Probably has. We're at the homecoming on Sunday too, and all the boys were good enough form, the same level. They weren't getting too carried away. They were sort of still in shock, maybe that they had won, But hopefully it's steadied. That confidence that'll give them winning Sam for the first time. Hopefully will bring them maybe to a new level. Yes, they've plenty of work to do. They've plenty of improve. I think there's more to come from our forward lines. Maybe Cahill and Connolly. There's more to come from them as well. Again, Darren McCurry. I think there's still a lot to come from him as well. And you're chipping in there with the coming on, but Mark Bradley, Ronan O'Neill, Yadara Canavan as well. Just a wee bit more to come from our forward line. If they can click that just a wee bit more, I think a wee bit better, maybe a wee bit more fluent in their play at times. The Wolves are their oyster, as I say. So I think they're happy that they got over the line on Saturday. It would have been a tough one to lose again if that had lost to Mayo after 18. Losing to Dublin would have been soring them. You could have found maybe like some Matty, Tiernan, maybe Ronan McNamee could have pulled the pin. Maybe with the disappointment losing. Will they ever get over the line? It could have been hard for them boys to come back. But say winning Sam, up now, looking forward to the future, and as I say, anything can happen the next year.
Yeah, 100%, Connor. Kevin, Mayo. Where do you start? Where do you begin? More heartbreak for them when you're looking through the team there. The likes of Rob Henley, he's been there, done that, never got over the line. Lee Keegan, some of the boys there, Patrick Durkin and Aidan O'Shea, Kevin McLaughlin. It's just more heartbreak for them. But as you were saying at the start of the show, it's hard to really feel sorry for them.
Yeah, it's the 8th wonder of the world. How Mayo keep coming back, isn't it? I don't know. I really don't know where to go from here. Some of these lads have travelled a long road. They've been through so much heartbreak. We've all played for a long time, and there's so many ups and downs, but you need the upstairs to keep you going, and they constantly keep on coming back. And look, it's some form of insanity. I hate saying that in the week after we've just had, and I'm not trying to rub it into them or get at them. It really is insanity. They keep on getting back to the same place and making the same mistakes. They're not ruthless enough inside Croke Park. They don't turn up on the big day. They don't choose the right tactics. Myself and Daniel were on with you last week, and we spoke how important the matchups were. We spoke how important ruthlessness was from Mayo, how important getting onto the front foot early was for Mayo, to make a real impression in this game. And they didn't do any of that. And I think Daniel maybe mentioned this earlier. James Horan was, in a way, he was schooled on the sideline. I would certainly agree with that. And, it's hard to know. Aidan O'Shea has a lot of miles on the clock now. He's had injuries. His impact upon the game year on year over the last 3 years has maybe been less and less. Lee Keegan's now been moved into the full back line. He doesn't have the same engine as he did. You know, fair play to them. Look, give them credit. They've blooded. Loftus is maybe in his second, third year. Ruan's obviously come in the last couple of years. We've obviously seen the potential that Tommy Conroy is. They've got Ryan O'Donoghue back now, who, you know, obviously was away playing other sports, but that's a big bonus to them. So look, they've bits and Pádraig O'Hara in there as well. At times this year was excellent for them. So they've bits and pieces to build upon. But really, psychologically, when you continue to get knocked, you know, it's so much harder to get back up on the wagon again. And, you know, really, it's going to be, they're back in Division 1 next year. What happens if they get a kicking in one of the league games earlier on? You know, and then the other thing is, look, when they get back inside Croke Park, if they do get back inside Croke Park next year, this was their year for me, for this particular team, for the likes of Lee Keegan, for the likes of Aidan O'Shea, for the likes of Paddy Durkin, because what had happened with Kerry and what had happened with Dublin, you know, it just seemed that it was so set up for Mayo, and yet again they let us down so much in the big occasion. So it's going to be a real difficult job for James Horan getting this team up. Yes, he came in last year, the year before, and he's rebuilt this team. Credit where it's due. But this is going to be so much more of a big job now. It's such a gut-wrenching defeat for Mayo, for the team, for the players, for the management, but also the supporters. So, you know, it's such a big job coming in the next season.
And Kev, as you were saying to start there, like, you need to be far more clinical. It's an All-Ireland final. We're obviously talking with Ryan O'Donoghue missing the penalty. Tommy Conroy had a great goal chance. Conor Loftus missed another great goal chance. Aidan O'Shea, another goal chance. I know Ronan McNamee to get his paws on it. It was a great block. Maybe O'Shea could have took a turn inside. It's the ifs, it's the whats, it's the maybes at this stage. But at the end of the day, like, and we're probably sick to talk about it, Kevin, you just have to be more clinical, and that's the bottom line.
Yeah, look, even when we come to pick goalkeeper of the year this year, let's start with that in terms of Rob Henley kicking from length has been excellent all this year, don't get me wrong. But when you weigh him up against Morgan last Sunday, Morgan was much more clinical, you know, especially at certain times of the game. I mean, I've got it down here. Massive miss in the 52nd minute by Rob Henley, and one you expect him to score. Brian Walsh misses what you would call a goal chance, maybe a point chance straight after, when the game there's only maybe a 3-point game. But when you look early on, Conor Loftus-Smith in the 14th minute, absolutely crucial. Now, I want to say this on the side of it, having again had the benefit of just watching the game before coming on here. The work rate of Niall Sludden to get back in that line, what a block. Give the guy credit. The number 12 was back in the line blocking the ball.
Yeah.
26 minutes gone in the game. The game's even. Massive goal chance for O'Shea. McNamee pops up. O'Shea, 2-3 years ago, would have had the confidence just to stall, let McNamee come past him, slip inside and finish the ball into the net. He rushed the shot. McNamee, and credit to him. There's 2 goal chances at vital times in the game to get Mayo a real foothold. They've lost them. Then obviously the O'Donoghue, the penalty chance in the 40th minute. Again, in that particular quarter of the game, between the 35th and the 45th minute, there was one score in the game. There was one score. Mayo got a point. Tyrone in that 10-12 minute period, just after half time, were a bit asleep. Cal McShane hits a bad way from a free. Conor McKenna has a chance right after half time. He should be scoring. So that was Mayo's chance to capitalise when their opponents weren't turned over the scoreboard. Yet again, the miss. You know, then the big misses I talked about from the goalkeeper and from Brian Walsh in the 52nd, 53rd minute. Then the water break comes, and what happens? Ball's kicked out at the other end of the pitch. After them 2 big misses, Tyrone get the McCurry goal. You know, it really kills the game then in terms of Mayo were chasing the game. So, look, we can say it about any team. If you're not ruthless on the big day, if you don't take your chances, you're not going to win the game. But this is the same problem in Mayo time and time again. Missing from place balls, missing clean-cut goal chances, you know, and you're not going to win. Look, in any given day, no matter what team you are, you're not going to win an All-Ireland final if you miss 4 to 5 goal chances. It just isn't going to happen. And the difference between them was Tyrone controlled the game. They took the right options, and when the right minutes came up in the game, they had the right players in the right end that took the right options and were ruthless about it. On the other hand, Mayo didn't do that. That's a simple moral of the story.
100%. Kind of touching on that mentality as well, Kevin. Obviously, Mayo missing them chances, and like they were very clinical against Dublin in the semi-final. Make no doubt about it. But what happens in a final? Because we're talking about Aidan O'Shea missing that chance. I know Curry did get his paws on it, but why doesn't maybe O'Shea have that instinct? Because he is obviously around so long. Why doesn't he have that instinct to kind of turn inside and nearly bury a bottom corner? I know about Ryan Dunn, lack of experience maybe for the penalty, but Conor Loftus should have buried the goal. Tommy Conroy, low and hard, kicked it wide. Why don't they have that killer instinct compared to what Tyrone did have?
Nothing prepares you for Croke Park on the big day. Nothing prepares you for a final on the big day. What you're looking as a player, 90% of this game is not about your feet and hands. It's about your brain. What's your brain telling you? What's the option? What is the best option for you? If you actually look at what Daniel Hussey said earlier on, if you freeze frame the Conor Meyler kick pass, Conor Meyler's kick pass should be actually displayed on the Paris catwalk this year. It's that beautiful, right? Because what actually happens is, if you freeze frame it, Cal McShane points, he wants the ball right in that spot, and he actually puts the spot in that honey spot. He puts it right on his head, right? And, the option, he knew, what am I thinking? What am I doing with this ball? Am I going long? Am I going short? He thought about what he was doing. Aidan O'Shea panicked, and that's the difference sometimes between the winning and losing a game. When you panic in particular areas, the coolness, the calmness, the speed of thought. Again, Daniel mentioned it. Conor McKenna's pass, it took out 3 players from the Mayo team just to palm it into the net. The speed of thought, but the calmness that Conor McKenna done it at. And that was at a critical time in the game as well. So nothing prepares you for the big day. It's all about how you use your brain. And that, for me, differentiates between the two teams last Sunday. Tyrone were much more economical with the ball. They took the better options. They thought time and time again. And as I said, Darren McCurry's the perfect example. In days gone by, Darren McCurry would have took shots on that you would have been pulling your hair out as manager. Now he seems a much more rounded team player. He seems to be buying into the team. He seems to be, when the shot's not on, give it back. And he's playing with his brain more with his feet and his hands and his shorts.
Very good. Very good. That's a great one-liner there, Kev, as usual. Daniel Hussey, we said during the week the bench was probably going to win this game for either team. It did. Tyrone had the stronger bench. They brought on the stars. The Son of God came on. McShane came on. It was the bench that won it from the end.
Yeah, I spoke before in the preview saying, in fairness to James Horan, I think they used 23 players against Dublin. He's trying to build some sort of a bench, but I guess there's only so many things a manager can do if the players just aren't there. Now, not saying things fell into Tyrone's lap, but almost the fact that Colin McShane, you could hold him in reserve and get away with it as a management team because he's only getting back from injury, meant that you could have someone like Colin McShane on the bench. Like, if you reverse that and he's starting and it's not going well, mate, you played like your ace card, like McShane is in terms of goals anyway. So they kind of got, the fact he almost timed his run beautifully, and you can bring him on from injury. He got those 20 extra minutes against Kerry. His confidence was up. He was always scoring a goal, wasn't he, as soon as he came on the pitch? And then obviously the Son of God and Derek Kavanagh as well. And not to mention some of the players that didn't even feature, like we were saying, but like Ben McDonald, Paul Donnelly, Terry McCann came on. It seemed to be so much more strength and depth from Tyrone, and I think they've always had those footballers over the last couple of years, and the bench won it for them when the game was in the melting pot, because when Colin McShane came on in the 44th minute, it was still 8-10 to my memory. I think Mayo had just missed a penalty. Ryan O'Donoghue missed a free, which you forget he actually missed the free and then missed the penalty. So he actually missed a free and a penalty within 2 minutes, which is a bit of a nightmare for him. For someone who I thought overall has done well in Ciaran O'Connor's shadow. And I guess it probably shows Mayo's lack of strength and depth, the fact that he had to be the man and there wasn't one of the senior players taking the mantle and taking those frees because they just didn't really have them, or maybe no one was stepping up for it. But does Diarmuid O'Connor take frees? Why was Ryan O'Donoghue put on all that pressure? Why was he taking the penalty? I know Diarmuid O'Connor actually wanted to take the penalty, and Ryan O'Donoghue obviously took one in the Connacht final, so I guess he was always taking it. But maybe looking back, Mayo might say, just on the experience side of things, why did we have to put so much pressure on Ryan O'Donoghue's shoulders? But to answer your question, yes, the bench was winning the game for Tyrone. Going back to some of the points there that Kevin was talking about with Mayo, and a little bit more on the James Horan thing, like I think he had it so in his head that Tyrone were going to play not too dissimilar that the way they played against Kerry, that there were a lot of opportunities for Mayo to kick that ball in when they had a 2-on-2 that they didn't kick it. Whereas I think Tyrone, and like we touched on, the head and playing with your head, the Conor Meyler chance, he sees the options on. Yes, we've worked a bit of it on training that way. Let's put the ball in on Colin McShane when he's free. And I don't think Mayo had that conversation to maybe kick the ball in long to Aidan O'Shea more, or I don't know. There didn't seem to be that adaptability within Mayo to think on the pitch, and they just kind of like kept trying to run against this Tyrone men who were sticking with the man-on-man. But yeah, like there were missed opportunities. The 4 goal chances Mayo had, like 4 big goal chances, like Loftus's chance early on, Aidan O'Shea chance should have come around. Ryan O'Donoghue obviously missed a penalty, but I think the big one was Tommy Conroy, because the goal chance hadn't even started and he'd hit it wide. You know, and that's something like, I play junior championship here in Dublin. That's something that I'd be fuming at our level if that happened, because Jesus Christ, look what's ahead of you. You've got a hop, take another hop, take a solo, and there's a 2-on-1 where the defender commits. And I think it was actually Aidan O'Shea, ironically, who was all set to maybe score his first time in 7 games. Imagine a moment that was. But not even to get that on one as a 1-on-1. It just the rush to the head. It seems that even though Tommy Conroy is only new to the scene, it seems that the way the history is kind of playing on this team a small bit, that they've got to kind of go back to the drawing board. But one thing I would say on one of Kevin's earlier points, that I would slightly disagree, that I think Mayo were in a worse place after the 2019 semi-final defeat to Dublin. They got absolutely battered that day. Lee Keegan, you know, the best player football of the year 2016, got absolutely roasted by Conor O'Callaghan. It was the end of that team. And culminate that with they spent another year on the road, got to an All-Ireland final, then all the retirements that happened this year. And for them to get to an All-Ireland final and they beat the Dubs, I do expect them to be somewhat thereabouts, because they always are. But I don't think it's going to be as tough an ask to come back as maybe other people think, albeit this is as big a chance as they'll ever get to win an All-Ireland. But I do think that these young players haven't been on the road that long. It is maybe question marks over the likes of O'Shea, but I thought Lee Keegan was, you know, it's an obvious thing to say, but he was amazing, absolutely amazing in a losing cause. And even I think Tyrone went 5 up after the goal, or very soon after, or whatever. And Lee Keegan's point and another point, and suddenly was 3, so he got them back into the game. So there's definitely a potential. There's an All-Ireland still in that team. I do believe that, but they're running out of opportunities. But I do think the likes of O'Hora, Oisin Mullen only came back from injury, which was unfortunate for them. 1 or 2 other injuries as well. And one player we haven't mentioned was Cian O'Connor, who gets a lot of stick for Dublin fans for, you know, quote unquote bottling at times, but I think they definitely missed him 100% in that All-Ireland final in particular.
Well, you're playing junior football and Connor's playing senior football, so what's the difference there?
Levels, isn't there? A few All-Ireland difference too.
Brilliant stuff. We've seen kind of, obviously when Tyrone got the goals, you know, Lee Keegan started to kind of, you know, push up the field and kind of force the issue, as I was saying, and Patrick Durkin, like the lads going at it, but the forward line just weren't producing the goods. Connor, you know, too little too late by this Mayo team once again, and it just seems like the gun just needs to be completely put to the head for Mayo to start playing football, Connor, at the best of times.
It maybe seems to be. O'Hora probably was charging forward a couple of times too, and the next thing he was sort of taken off, so it'd be enough decision to do that as well, because he seemed to be just about to come into the game a wee bit, or run forward, and I think he won a free. So just probably Staines' decision as well. Him and Keegan seemed to be just about to do something, you know. But I don't know, it's just typical Mayo, like to end up beating Dublin in the semi-final, and then sort of poor enough performance by their standards in the final. Like, so I'm sure they're hugely disappointed. It was a good opportunity for them. The last 2 years, I think it's been absolutely massive for them, because handy enough running Connacht, stayed in the semi-final and in the final. Like, so I don't know if they ever won it again. I suppose they chat about the curse versus the virus there that they're chatting about. So I think the curse is still working, and I think it'll still keep working. Even Cora Staunton was giving them a bit of stick during the week as well there, but the forward line not really clicking and not really working. So I think they have it all to do, Mayo, in my opinion. I can't see them winning again over the next 2, 3, 4 years. Like, they're massive blow for the last like 7 finals, really, and couldn't replace if they haven't got over the line. So I just don't know. Can't see the way forward. Again, Kevin mentioned a tough Division 1 champion next year. A couple of high in that maybe, or not performing well. Where do they go from there? Like, so I just don't know. Can they keep coming back? The supporters seem to be coming back. They seem to have a lot of belief and a lot of desire in it. But I don't know. Maybe I'm been too harsh on them or too sore on them. But things just didn't go the way and didn't maybe changing for them, you know.
Yeah, obviously Conor, Daniel was mentioning the retirements and like for Mayo to get back to the promised land again with the retirements that they did have this year, but we really could be looking at Lee Keegan maybe packing it in, Kevin McLaughlin, Aidan O'Shea might be asking himself a few questions. I really think Colin Boyle could be packing the bags as well, Conor, so we could be looking at a few more retirements. That was a serious chance of Saturday. Next year's going to be even tougher for them, and James Horan, his future could be in doubt as well, so unfortunately they're going to have to build again, Conor.
They probably will. They're going to have to find forwards again, I think, maybe. You know, probably not too bad with Sahora, Oshin Mullen. I'd imagine Keegan will stay on. Exceptional final. I thought played very, very well. So good enough defensive platform. Midfield, they would probably have enough. Matthew Ryan, Conor Loftus done fairly well up until the final. So again, they're going to need the forward pair. Aidan O'Shea hasn't really been firing all cylinders. As Daniel mentioned, probably the Killian O'Connor probably was the missing link for them at the weekend. Just probably in the penalty. Like if he had been in the penalty, your percentage of him scoring was pretty high. But again, they're going to have to look at converting the chances the boys mentioned there, like their conversion rate or they're taking them chances is killer. And if you're not scoring your chances, your goal chances, Tyrone took theirs, won the game, Mayo missed theirs, and they didn't just basically. So they're going to have to work on maybe more forward power, more directness maybe. Maybe Aidan's maybe prefer better out around the middle of the field, maybe playing sort of from a half back, trying to link defence from attack and finding more firepower up front. I think that's maybe a concern for James Horn. I imagine he'll stay on too. He'll want to right the wrongs. I don't see him packing it in, tell you the truth. I see he'll want to try and get Mayo back again and get them up the steps, but I think he has a really, really tough job on his hands at the minute.
Yeah, he really does, Conor. He really does, and obviously we've seen Ryan O'Donoghue missed the penalty, and obviously Conor, you've been in numerous All-Ireland finals, and okay, he's a young fella, and people were saying if it was just slightly more to the right, it would have went in, and you know he was really going for placement. But look, at the end of the day, Conor, it's a high pressurised situation. There's millions of people watching you. It wasn't easy for him, I suppose.
No, definitely not. That's one thing I wouldn't like to be doing. I wouldn't like to have a penalty in a club league game here with nobody watching me. Never mind final. It's bound to be high pressure. As we stutter, maybe mightn't help them picking again. I think and looking at it, picking to go into the top corner, you're lessening your chances of scoring. I think you're probably better trying to keep it low on the ground. Pick out a top corner in Ireland final. I don't know if maybe it was. I mean, his best decision he ever made, unfortunately, and it just proved that. It just gave him the post and went wide. But hey, he's a young fella, I suppose, as someone that have to take on board and try and turn it around and use it maybe as a motivation to try and get back there, to try and improve, try and learn from it as best he can. Definitely horrible situation. He'll not be feeling good this week, but hopefully he'll learn from it. And he'll have good people around him, good family members, and imagine all around him, try and keep him right and look forward again to next year. I suppose that's all you can do really at this stage. There's not a wild fortune for him. It went wide, and lucky for us and Tyrone people, he kept it wide, you know.
100%. Kevin, the elephant in the room, Mr. Aidan O'Shea. What more can you really say about the man? He wasn't in it against Dublin. He wasn't in it on Saturday, unfortunately, and a lot of people kind of question his performance. A lot of head scratching going on. You know, the impact Aidan O'Shea had this year. I know, like he obviously done it maybe against the lesser teams like stuff Leitrim and Sligo and various bits like that. But big day, Aidan O'Shea. He went missing once again, Kevin.
Yeah. Look. First and foremost, let's also acknowledge that Ronan McNamee was exceptional for Tyrone on Sunday. He was obviously very motivated for the task in hand, and you know he kept a good eye on Aidan O'Shea. I think actually one of the things that people should watch is 36 minutes into the match. Yeah, Daniel talked about maybe pumping a long ball into Aidan O'Shea. They actually started that at the beginning of the second half, and Ronan McNamee broke the ball, and who was there? One right underneath Aidan O'Shea's feet, but that man Conor Meyler. So you know. It was maybe something that they did look at, but Tyrone had just too many cute boys, or as Pat Spillane would call them, cute hoors, at the feet. So, look, Aidan O'Shea has been a colossus in terms of his physical size. when he first came onto the team, he represented a player who had every facet of the game. He could catch, he could score, he had good ball skills for a big man. He was physically strong. He could play in full forward. He could play at centre half forward. He could play in the middle of the park for you. I think if Aidan O'Shea is to continue on playing, which I think all of us here would hope that he does, he may become a bit part player. We need to look at his impact on the game and what he is and isn't having. Look, there's no doubts that the guy, when he first came onto the scene, he set the town alight in certain ways against certain teams. Maybe, as Daniel will tell us, not with the Dub fans, because he never turns up, the Dubs say. But there was a lot of pressure on him. There has been a lot of pressure on him. And that obviously has its toll on players. I honestly think that Matty Donnelly's performance over the last 18, 20, 24 months, I think there's been a lot of pressure on Matty, if I'm honest with you. Maybe in the last couple of years with the Hardy era, and that was affecting him a small bit. So you see this with many players where pressure is on the guy, maybe affects them. As you go on a bit as well, Aidan's had 2 or 3 different sets of injuries. But for me, moving forward, he'll become a bit part player for Mayo, whether they start him in the middle of the park, maybe look at him for 30, 35, 40 minutes of a game and then take him off. Or they use him like Tyrone used Callum McShane last Sunday, and they bring him on in full forward and maybe ask teams different questions. There's no doubts that Aidan's sort of honours horribilis, as they would say in Latin, has been inside Croke Park on the ultimate day against whether that be Tyrone, Kerry or Dublin. And unfortunately, many people will judge him that way as a footballer. And the only way he's going to get that monkey off his back is by producing in there maybe one more time.
We'll wait and see. Kev, Joe Brolly wrote in The Independent, "No more excuses, please, for football's greatest time wasters." What's the opinion on all that?
Who was he talking about, football's greatest time wasters? Himself?
Mayo.
Himself, post 93. Anyway.
No, I think that Mayo, as I say, look, we can all harp on about the Mayo story. I mean, it was. I don't know if anybody got the video, but it was bloody well on countdown as the greatest sporting curse. I don't know if any has seen that video.
I've watched that. It's very good.
Yeah, so it was on countdown as the greatest sportive curse of all time. I never get sick of listening to Kevin Kilban the week running up to an All-Ireland final where he's tweeting about, will the curse die? And there's a load of English people asking what the hell's the curse. So, I mean, it's known the world over. You can talk about curses all you want. Realistically, time wasters, I wouldn't say they're time wasters. Look at the graft they give us. Look at the fun they give supporters. Look at the entertainment they give us. Look at Lee Keegan coming out of France with Pádraig O'Hara. Look at, Ran O'Donoghue in the way that even though he missed that penalty, his attitude towards the game. I think that's a despicable statement saying that somebody's a time waster when, they're playing an amateur sport. They're giving so many people so much joy and fulfillment. But realistically, for Mayo now, the question, it has been ongoing for maybe 2 decades or more now, is you've got to come out of the gloom. They've got to come out of the gloom. And, the only way to do that for me is one thing, and that's self-belief. And I think that there is a big issue of self-belief in Mayo. That's the only way I can see it.
Daniel, obviously we were discussing it on a few days ago. Joe Brolly's comments in The Independent, and obviously they seemed lit up a storm. We're obviously saying everyone's kind of talking about it. What's your take on the whole thing with Joe Brolly?
Yeah, I love Joe Brolly, and you won't get a bigger Joe Brolly fan kind of in terms of what he represents. He's awfully missed an RT, to be fair to him, but I thought the article was a bit below the belt. It was a bit kind of Control C, Control V from previous seasons. And I didn't think a lot of it was fair, to be fair, particularly on Aidan O'Shea. He seems to have a bee in his bonnet about Aidan O'Shea, given his article 2 weeks ago about the photo shoot, and then given this week. But what I would say is, he said Mayo are football's biggest time wasters. And I kind of not get annoyed, but everyone kind of slating Mayo over this week in particular, post All-Ireland final. I would be kind of looking more at down south at the guardians of football in Kerry, and over the last 2 seasons, what have they done? Do you know what I mean? Mayo have got themselves to 2 All-Ireland finals against Dublin, who ended up winning the 6 in a row, and then against this incredible Tyrone team after beating the Dubs. Yeah, Kerry, made a balls of it against Cork last year, and everyone gave them all the excuses in the world. Oh, look, you know, they got caught by a kick at the ball. They would have won the All-Ireland last year. And then this year was their year, and then they didn't manage to get it done against Tyrone. Yes, you know, 90% of coverage, and I accept it's the All-Ireland final now, but it's about Mayo bottling it. But realistically, Kerry had these last 2 All-Irelands if they wanted them, and they didn't get the job done. They can get the job done against Tyrone, because they went into it very naively, and then they didn't even get anywhere near the All-Ireland semi-finals because they lost to Munster lost to Cork in a Munster semi-final. So I think there needs to be a bit of perspective. This Mayo team, that 2017 final, I think is like possibly the best ever Gaelic football match played, at least that I attended. And it was a kick of a ball between Mayo and Dublin, and I thought their performance that day was incredible. The 16, I accept they probably should have won those games, particularly the replay, or particularly the first game. Sorry, I think when Dublin scored 2, or Mayo scored the 2 own goals. But yeah, I think they like. There's obviously winning and losing. That's ultimately what sport's about. But like, I know as a Dublin fan, I haven't met a set of supporters like the Mayo supporters, and the atmosphere they give in Croke Park in an 82,000 stadium is incredible, and the buzz they bring and generate for the GA, and a lot of the All-Ireland championships over the last few years wouldn't have been half as good without this Mayo team. So, and that's just everything that surrounds the Mayo team, the fans, and we'd be a poor sport without it, and a poor country without that bit of madness that Mayo bring. And it was great seeing them in some ways beating Dublin to get over the line, and it probably followed the typical Mayo heartbreak story, the fact they couldn't get it done against Tyrone. But I think Mayo give far more than they don't. And at the end of the day, there was 30 other counties that didn't make the All-Ireland final this year. Mayo actually put themselves there. They put themselves in the shop window again. Yes, they came up short, but like, what are the other 30 counties doing that they haven't got to the last 2 All-Ireland finals, or all the All-Ireland finals since 2012 that Mayo have been in, including replays as well? So I think they're definitely a net positive, and what they've done, I'd be very proud if I was a Mayo man in terms of my county team and the likes of Aidan O'Shea, Keane O'Connor, Lee Keegan, and that I've soldiered for so long. In my opinion, they can still do it, and I think that's the beauty of it, that they'll be thereabouts the next few years. But even if they don't get over the line, I think they deserve massive credit for what they've given the sport. And I think Joe knows that, because I think, as far as I know, he lives in Mayo anyway, so I know he's doing it for clicks and all. But I think it's very harsh, and we have to remember we're not the Premier League here. The Aidan O'Shea isn't getting paid 200 grand a week. He's an amateur like every other Mayo player, like every other GA player in the country, and I think it's a little bit below the belt to be kind of calling out photo shoots and whatnot. Particularly when you have that platform, which is ultimately why I get kind of annoyed about it. But no, I'd be, as a Mayo fan, I'd be proud of what they've done, albeit Saturday was obviously a massive, massive disappointment.
Connor, your take on Mr. Brawley's comments?
That's Joe being Joe. Like he jumps in the bandwagon wherever he wants, just, and criticises. He seems to put a going all time at Tyrone. A lot of the time as well. He just seems to love the Son of God. Like, he really loves the Canavans. Like, you know, you're not Joe Brawley's good books. Like, so I pass no remarks on what Joe said sometimes, but when he's doing a bit of personal stuff, like maybe he is doing with Aidan O'Shea, definitely he's overstepping the mark in that regard. Like, as Donald said there, like, your amateur players were going out to try and do your best every day you do, and get criticised constantly for how you play. It's just definitely, it's not on enough. You just want to go out and enjoy the game, and you don't want to be going home or clicking on the phone and seeing people criticising you and giving you loads of stick. It's just not on. It's not fair at all on the players at the minute. That sort of social media thing, boys are still on the phone. I know even been involved in the minor squad who played one of our games, and with the men and the change room, the boys were still on the phone straight away, like, and they were flicking through, seeing their reaction, you know, what was being said or what was going on. And there was definitely something maybe, I don't know, if Jay maybe want to look into. You're into sort of mental health awareness and all that as well. Like, so something that could be something we're done about that in regard sort of player welfare, and maybe the GPA could look on it as well. Like, someone that's not constantly criticising players all the time, because it's definitely not, just basically not nice way to go on, you know.
I think just a final thing on that, I think Connor makes a brilliant point, because like, obviously we've seen like the abuse in England, and I think that's a way, like, that's a lot further down the line, in fairness. But Joe Brawley's platform that he has, people see that and then think it's okay then to, off the back of that, bring things worse and make it even more personal on social media. And that's an interesting point, that like a minor squads and stuff. And I'm 27 now, so I'm 10 years removed from minor now, and it's just every year everyone's more and more on their phone. So I think it's very important that the GA kind of step up on that and make sure that abuse and people are getting called out for abusing players and abusing them, because at the end of the day it's an amateur sport, but like there's people that have to go to work on Monday morning as well. Like,
yeah, 100%, 100%. Well, lads, that was great stuff. Connor, who was your player of the match?
Question. I go for player of the match for me would be maybe we could go with Brian Kennedy and Colin Kilpatrick. I know always Conor Meyler and exceptional games, or defenders of exceptional games, but we'll go with the two midfielders because first coming in sort of under the leader of Mayo's midfield have been topped up, and for the two boys to put an exceptional performance like that, we've all seen the mighty actually had to set up McCrory's goal, the awareness to see McKenna running off him as well to flick it off them. So sort of a good to the two boys. McKenna worked himself into the ground. Maybe after 55 minutes or so, we had to come off with cramp and stuff. So the work that they done. So I'll go for a joint with Frank Kennedy and Colin Kilpatrick.
100%. And Kev, what about yourself?
Thanks for stealing Colin Kilpatrick there on me, Connor.
Same.
I'm going to go with Al Sludden. He scored 0-2 in the first half, stepped up, vital time, scored in the 37th minute, just when Tyrone were beginning to take over. He obviously makes that unbelievable block on the line that denied Conor Loftus, and his work rate was massive. He actually should have scored another point early in the third quarter of the game when he got through. It was quite a bad miss by him, but contributing 0-2, his defensive duties as well, his overall play, and for me, he's an absolute shoe-in for an all-star this year.
And last word with yourself, Daniel, who's your player of the match?
Yeah, I was kind of leaning towards Kilpatrick, but in terms of the podcast here, I'll make it a bit better. I'll go Conor Meyler, because I still think like he had an incredible game, and I can't get over that pass to Colin McShane. Right option, right time, big moment, won the game for Tyrone. But the fact is, we've named 3 players there, and they gave it to McCurry. Just shows you the strength and depth, not too dissimilar to the Limerick Hurlers. There's no one individual in this team, you know. And like Kieran McGeary was like by far he won man of the match in the semi-final. The fact he hasn't even got a mention in our man of the match picks just kind of shows you that stuff. But fair play to our own, yeah. But I go with Conor Meyler, but I'm a massive Conor Meyler fan, so.
100%. I'll go for the Dazzler McCurry. I think he had a very good game. But look, lads, there was a numerous amount of lads you could have gave the man of the match to. Lads, what a game of football we had on Saturday. Tyrone are the All-Ireland champions for 2021. And that wraps up our reviews and previews for the year. But there's lots more stuff coming up, player interviews, and lots more to come. So tonight, I'll thank Conor Gormley, Daniel Hussey, and Kevin McGarty for joining me this week. And of course, this podcast is brought to you by orgaretro.com and Attack Sports. Use my promo code JMac podcast to get 15% off on orgaretro.com and get the best skins, gloves, and equipment on Atak.ie. Be attack minded. Connor, Daniel, Kevin, thanks a million.
Cheers, guys.
Thanks.
Good luck.
Cheers, lads.